Hello and welcome to Faith Matters, the show where we take a spiritual perspective on life and culture in Merseyside. And we're joined today by Benjamin Huthwaite of Benjamin Huthwaite Grooming Salon, or perhaps should I say men's hairdressing salon. Lovely, and it's great to be with you. We're here in Allerton. So now, Ben, you've obviously been involved in hairdressing for a good few years, haven't you? Can you tell us a little bit about the salon and how it came to be?
Well, I started hairdressing as an apprentice about 23 years ago, so I'm showing my age. And I started in a big salon in Liverpool city centre, and then went from there. I was there for 6 years and then went travelling for a year and came back and then worked in a few other little places and then decided to try and set up my own place. So that was 15 years ago this November.
Oh wow, okay. Now you've got I think a range of clients, haven't you? Can you tell us a bit about who comes and uses the salon here?
We have anyone from a week old. We have week old babies that have the hair shaved. That's like some kind of tradition in certain faiths, and so we do that. We do right up to, I think our eldest client is about 87, 88, so a full demographic of people, men.
Okay, so Ben, now from what I can tell from the ethos on the website, you've got you have a philosophy that underpins what you do here: consistency, creativity, and honesty. And I was just wondering where those values come from.
Well, I was brought up in a Christian home, and I was going to church till about 14, and then I went into hairdressing, and then went travelling, and I spent about 7 years not going to church. I still had a faith and still had a foundation in God, but I didn't really want to do. I wanted to see what the world was like without God, and so I went travelling for 7 years in the wilderness, not looking for other things, but just experiencing the world without God. And I came back and was very grateful how the salon was established, how I set it up, all the things went right, and I started wanting to explore my faith and discover my faith for myself. And that's when I did an alpha course, and did another alpha course, and another one, and then my wife did an alpha course, and then basically it went from there.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's a Christian ethos, and in fact you can't, there's sort of subtle influences around the salon where you see that, particularly I noticed in the background there's a Bible passage on the wall, isn't there? Where did that come from?
Well, it's one of my favourite Bible passages, and it's Matthew 11:28, and it's about having a burden, and it's very real to me and to my customers, because a lot of people come in and they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders, and that's basically what the passage is talking about. It's about Jesus saying, come to me, you've got all this pressure, I'll take it off you, my burden is light and my yoke is easy. And quite often the question that comes up is, what's a yoke? And it's basically something that an ox would pull and have around the neck, and quite often that's the question that pops up, but it leads to more conversation. So and I felt that I wanted to have my faith out there, but in a kind of gentle way that's not too pushy, but would prompt conversation, prompt questions. So, and that's what it does. It's in reverse writing, so it's in mirror writing, so you don't actually see the verse or understand the verse until you sit in the chair and you've got nowhere to go, but you're faced with a Bible verse.
Do you find then that lots of people do come and share their burdens with you? Is it something that in
absolutely.
Conversation?
I think generally hairdressing is known as one of the happiest professions to be in, and I think that's because you see people on a week-to-week basis. You see people coming in with the next part of their story, the next chapter of the story, and you can catch up, and that's a repetitive process, month in, month out, year in, year out, and yeah, so that's.
And has anyone here ever, I guess, shared things that perhaps, I mean, I sometimes think that the dynamic of a hairdresser, you're sort of not kind of facing each other. Can that make it easier, particularly with men, to open up or to be sharing things that maybe they wouldn't have told people before?
Yeah. And I can do the same. Quite often people talk to me about their marriages or problems or illness in the family, and over the years I've got more and more confident about praying for people, And so that's what I do. I say, would you like me to pray for you? And it's usually a very simple, easy thing to do, a very quick prayer. But it's them having an opportunity, and me having an opportunity to share my faith in a non-intimidating way, in a very gentle way that won't cause harm or offence.
Do you feel that there is a responsibility there, or do you feel you want to respond? Is that sort of your faith aspect? Because when someone shares something very personal or quite deep, that can be a weight that then is put on you. Do you feel that at times?
Not really, no.
You just sort of...
I just absorb it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm able to talk to my wife about things at home, so that can be one way it's expressed or whatever. But I think I chat to so many people day in, day out that whatever pressure or burden there is with me, it's kind of shared. Yeah. Not that I talk about other people's problems, but it's just because I'm talking all day, it's just a vent.
And is that something that you other staff do here as well? Are other people involved in that process of listening? And
yeah, absolutely. I think in this industry you have to be a really good listener, and quite often, because we are talking all day, it's quite nice to listen when someone wants to chat, you know, and usually it's very interesting as well.
Get some good stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I just am very interested as well about another aspect of hairdressing, which is obviously to do with looks, and it's to do with aesthetics and the way people appear and appearances in general. And I was just wondering, particularly for men, do you feel that that's something that's increased in recent years, that men are caring more about the way they are presented and the way they look?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of men are obsessed with how they look. There's been a big rise in hair transplants recently because that technology is available now. So lots of men, we're seeing lots of people with hair transplants now. So it's, you know, male pattern baldness isn't a problem anymore. And, you know, people, I don't know, we are a little bit more expensive than a lot of salons, so I think people want to look a certain way. They'll come to somewhere where they expect for us to know what we're doing. Yeah. And so, yeah.
So you're offering like a high level of expertise, really,
and a good level of service. That's the idea.
And do you think that there's, do you think men are coping with the pressure, or do you feel like that there is more demand for men to look better? I
think generally there's a lot of issues with men. I recently I've found lots of men talking about having breakdowns, and I don't know whether that's to do with looking good or whatever, but it's an opportunity, it's an environment where they feel comfortable to tell me those kind of things. So that's going back to a previous question, but I think men are very pressured into looking a certain way, or looking in a way that is the alpha male, or presenting themselves a certain way. Definitely.
And it strikes me that is something that you're in some way trying to do something different. It's you're not just offering a service with high quality, sort of standards, but also that you do want to listen to people and see what's really on their hearts. Would you say there are any other ways that your faith or the ethos that you bring here, affects the way you work?
Yeah, quite often we have delivery guys turning up who have been up and down the road looking for this place. It doesn't happen so much nowadays, but definitely in the early years when we first opened, and it quite often come against their anger and frustration with, would you like a cup of coffee? And it usually deflates the situation, and they can't believe somebody's offered them a cup of coffee when they're just, they're a delivery guy, and that can be a nice way to.
Would you say also as well in the kind of creative aspect of this, because a lot of the shows at the moment that I've been involved in, we've been meeting creatives, and I definitely say that hairdressing is a very creative process. Is that, and do you feel that the creativity that you bring to the job is in some way kind of influenced by your faith, or any kind of?
I certainly put the skills of my hands down to God, giving me the ability to cut hair and a personality that can talk to anyone, really. So I give God the glory for that. And if that helps me be a better hairdresser, care a bit more about special little important things that maybe other people might miss, then yeah.
Excellent, thanks Ben. Well, we're going to come to our commercial break now, but if you have any comments or suggestions, do contact us at faithmatters@baytvliverpool.com. We'll see you after the break. Hello, welcome back to Faith Matters, where I am joined with Ben Huthwaite of Benjamin Huthwaite Hair Salon in Allerton. And we were chatting just a bit about hairdressing and about faith before this. But now it's great to welcome you back, Ben. I'd love to ask you a little bit about how you got into hairdressing in the first place.
Right, well, I was unsure what to do. I like joinery. I like working with my hands, being creative. And I felt from a quite young age that I'd quite like to do something like that. I loved CDT and craft design, technology and stuff in school, and art, and so being a joiner was a good idea, I thought. There was also being a chef, I like cooking and making people feel good in that respect. And then another angle was going into the hotel game. I quite like the idea of being a maitre d' and welcoming people to a nice place and making them feel good.
And did you try out all these different things, and it was sort of a process of elimination that led you into hairdressing?
Well, yeah, I was always making things in school. I made a doll's house for my sisters in my lunch break in school, and then I made lots of other stuff. I think I refitted Mum and Dad's bathroom while they were away one week, and they came back and they didn't really like it, but I did like doing stuff like that.
So things with your hands.
And also cooking meals for the family. I liked making them feel special through that. And I always liked going to nice places, and hotels are usually nice places, and I thought, well, I'd like to do that. So I did try to be a hotelier. I wrote to a hotel in Liverpool for my work experience, and they replied, but I didn't get the reply till it was too late, till the actual day I started. So maybe fate's hand was at work there. And then was it only when you started travelling and went off that you tried hairdressing, or did you do it before? I got a friend of mine worked in a salon in a town called Revd, and he was always encouraging me to go in, and because we were really good friends, and he was like, oh, come in, it's great fun, there's loads of girls, there's loads of this, there's loads of that, and it was very appealing. And so I started working Saturdays. I got a Saturday job at, I think I was 15, and then I started full time when I left school at 16, and went straight in, and then I was there for the next 6 years after that.
And I guess it opened doors for you, because it's a trade that you can take anywhere. So was I right in thinking you were living in Australia for a time?
Yeah, so I did my training. I met my wife, my future wife, in Herbert's, and then went travelling for a year, supposed to be a year, ended up being 8 months. But we had a fantastic time, travelled all around Australia and Thailand, and then came back. But we both worked, my wife was a hairdresser, and so she did the ladies' hair, and I did all the male hair.
And did things differ in different cultures? So you find that, you mentioned earlier a little bit about the shaving of babies' heads can be a cultural way of sort of dealing with babies' hair. And I was wondering if there were other cultures or other faiths and things that you kind of encountered that required different hairstyles or grooming.
Certainly the Aussies have a certain distinct way of having the hair. A lot of Australians, especially the older generations. But I wouldn't say, apart from Sikh, where the hair's kept very, very long, as a act of faith, I think. Not really religion was taken into account with haircuts, but obviously the different continents, people have different hair. Australia's very, very hot, so lots of people have very, very short hair, maybe a bit longer at the neck.
Yeah. And then obviously, as part of your own journey, I guess was happening simultaneously to this, did you find that your own practice started to change as your faith grew?
I'd say that certainly happened back in the UK once I opened this place, and it was a gradual process. But in Australia, it wasn't really an issue.
No, it didn't sort of affect the way you worked then?
No. Yeah. I mean, I've always been caring and I've always wanted to make people feel good. And so having a faith was probably the icing on the cake in latter years. It's become the icing on the cake, maybe.
Okay. And so what, for you, was there a particular moment where you sort of suddenly believed it all, or kind of, you mentioned you went to 3 Alpha courses?
Yeah, I was definitely searching all around Australia. When I came back, we lived in a flat above the shop when we first got married, and there was something inside me. I think my sister said to me, you know, I don't want to see you lost. I want to see you come to know Jesus. You know, you're missing out. It's great, and I didn't want to have to believe that. I didn't want to be pushed into it. I wanted to discover it for myself, and so. A few things happened. Not long after I opened, I did this guy's hair, and he was training to be a vicar. And I told him a story, a bit of my testimony of how I'd travelled around Australia and I'd opened this place. But all the way through travelling around Australia and travelling and then opening this place, I was always praying. I was like, Lord, I just pray you get us out of this situation, or Lord, I just pray you help us with this, or I pray the timber will turn up today, or the plasterer, or the electrician. And all those things happened, and I was very grateful. And I was constantly thinking, oh, he's answering my prayers here, you know. And at the end of it, and the shop was open, and I started thinking, I really need to do something. I felt a bit guilty that I'd been asking all these things, and they'd all been happening, and I wasn't giving anything back. And so I started looking and exploring, and I wanted to discover a faith for myself. I didn't want to be told by my parents or encouraged to do it the way my sister wanted me to. I wanted to just discover Jesus for myself.
Now, you mentioned just then that you had a vicar client, but you also had another fairly famous bishop, am I right in thinking?
Yeah, I used to do Bishop James's hair, so he saw a little article that I did with Together for the Harvest magazine. And then he turned out he knew my mum and dad from working in Africa with them, and then he started coming in for haircuts. So I had the privilege of doing that for about a year or so. Yeah. Before he moved on.
I think it's good to know that our religious leaders are interested in looking like decent human beings as well. Excellent. Yeah. Now we touched a little bit on that.
Being made to feel special.
And being made to feel special. So I think this is a really interesting aspect of what you do, really, because I guess for some Christians they might think, hairdressing is just about sort of the superficial side of life, and actually, as people of faith in general, it could be a people of faith, we care about the heart. And I guess I wonder, what would you say to them if that was a challenge that someone put to you?
Can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm wondering whether you feel as though you've mentioned a bit about how the work you do is more than just about the way people look, but if there were people particularly challenging you on that, saying, well, hairdressing is just about the way you look, what might you say back in response to that?
I think it is about how you look, and it's important to look good and feel good, but it is for me more about making people feel good, making people feel better, lifting them. Sharing what they've got to talk about that maybe other people aren't listening to. It seems more nowadays for me that it's more like a pastoral role. So I'm listening and trying to offer advice and love.
Excellent. Wow, brilliant. Now, obviously you've got this salon here, and you also you've been growing over the years, and I'm right in thinking you now have your own range of hair products as well. Could you just tell us a bit about those?
I've always wanted to develop a product range, and then a couple of years ago a guy came in and just said, would you like your own product range? And we were like, yeah, okay, I'd love to, and that helped me get a range together. So it starts with just a pot of wax, and I can show you that if you want.
Well, maybe we can get a little clip of it at the end, and we'll have a look at those.
And then that turned into a shampoo and a conditioner, and then a styling spray as well.
And is that, I guess, is that because it's to do with sort of, if you're leaving people feeling good, then they can go and continue kind of that work on themselves after they leave?
Yeah, it's a little reminder of who we are. It's like a business card in your bathroom, which is important. Yeah, and it's also a great product. So.
Now, do you see, you know, if you think about the future and think about what you want to do with the salon or here, do you have any particular plans, or is it just continuing, going steady on what you're already doing or building on that?
Yeah, I would like to. Over the years, I've always wanted to develop the salon and grow it, and I think I still would. I'd still like to do something, whether it's improving this place or doing something else with somebody else somewhere else. Yeah, so that's something I'd like to do. But there's also at the back of my mind, I've got a family. It's busy, it's hectic having children, and maybe doing another salon is maybe something a bit too much or too much work. So
perhaps then actually just running this place well is sort of great and valuable in itself.
Absolutely. I remember my old boss, he was offered a 600 salon chain.
Oh wow.
And he decided that he'd prefer not to, because if he sacked one person a month, it was 600 people out of work.
Wow.
And he just felt like it was too much responsibility. So it's quite nice having something small but very good.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Ben, so much for chatting with us today. You've been watching Faith Matters. I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.